بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Once it comes to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, we have many discussions taking place regarding whether there is any special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān or not. Insha'Allah ta'ala, in this hopefully short clip, I wish to present this discussion in a simple and easy to understand manner. As I myself am of the opinion that there is a special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, I initially want to present 3 points before yourselves through which we can conclude that there is a special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān. The first point will relate to a portion of a verse of the glorious Quran. The second will relate to the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the final third will relate to a logical perspective. Once it comes to the portion of the verse of the glorious Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, "Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah." Indeed, we revealed it, i.e. the glorious Quran, in a blessed night. Once it comes to the commentary of what this blessed night in which the glorious Quran was revealed refers to, we have two major opinions. The first opinion is that this blessed night refers to the night of power. And the second opinion is that it refers to the 15th night of Shaʻbān. From amongst these two opinions, the first opinion is the correct opinion, and the second opinion has been overlooked by the scholars. The first is correct, as it has been derived after having combined many verses of the glorious Quran. Now we may be thinking, the reason for why I have mentioned this portion of this verse, once it comes to the issue of the virtue of the 15th of Shaʻbān, after having conceded that this blessed night does not refer to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, but it refers to the night of power. The answer is that yes, this commentary is not the correct commentary. It has been overlooked by the scholars. But in order for Ikrimah rahimahullah ta'ala and his likes to opine that this blessed night refers to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, there must have been some significance and some importance to the 15th night of Shaʻbān in order for them to hold this opinion. If the 15th night of Shaʻbān was not a blessed night in their time, then they most definitely would not have opined that this blessed night refers to the 15th night of Shaʻbān. Ikrimah rahimahullah ta'ala and those alongside him who held this opinion that this blessed night in this portion of this verse refers to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, they are not scholars of the recent past, but they are scholars who came very close to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Through this we understand that in earlier times there must have been an understanding that the 15th night of Shaʻbān is significant, important, and it must hold some virtue. I will explain this through an example. If I was questioned regarding who a hench person is, then I would only make mention of someone who is known to be hench. If there was someone who is not known to be hench, or he is not hench, then I would never put his name forward. In a similar manner, in order for Ikrimah rahimahullah ta'ala and his likes to opine that this blessed night refers to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, this means there most definitely would have been some significance to the 15th night of Shaʻbān in their time. The second point I mentioned relates to the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Within this point, I want to expound upon the difference of opinion regarding whether the 15th night of Shaʻbān holds special virtue or not. Some are of the understanding that the 15th night of Shaʻbān does not hold any special virtue. And like I mentioned, that I myself and others are of the understanding that the 15th night of Shaʻbān does hold special virtue. Let's understand the reason for why we have two different opinions. Those who opine that there is no special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, They do so because once they assess all the various ahadith in this regard on an individual basis, none of those ahadith, according to their understandings individually, are authentic, they are all weak. This is the reason for why they overlook any special virtue for the 15th night of Shaʻbān, and they opine the 15th night of Shaʻbān to be like any other night. Those who are of the understanding that no, there is special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, they consider certain principles of the experts of hadith. The first principle I will mention is that once it comes to virtues of actions, then the experts of hadith are of the understanding that weak ahadith can be taken on board as long as certain conditions are found. These conditions I will expound upon when I discuss the fast of the 15th of Shaʻbān. The second principle is that once it comes to commandments, once it comes to rulings within the Sharia, if we have certain ahadith which are weak on an individual basis, but once they are combined, they will then gain enough strength in order to be utilized and they will then benefit us. These two principles are principles that have been mentioned and accepted by the majority of the experts of ahadith. As it's a clip for the public, there is no need to go into detail, make mention of names, and also reference where these quotes have been taken from. Now, once it comes to ourselves, we say that yes, we agree. The ahadith in this regard individually may be weak, but once we combine them, they then gain that strength that never mind we can only take a virtue from them, we can even utilize them once it comes to rulings within the Sharia. Let me give an example through which we can understand this. Because many people think that if a hadith is individually weak, how can it then become strong once it's combined with many other weak ahadith that have a similar theme? Once it comes to a person's hand, the fingers upon his hand individually are weak. He cannot really lift anything with them. But once these fingers that are individually weak are combined, they then gain such strength that a person can now lift something with them. In a similar manner, at certain times when ahadith are individually weak, once they are combined with similar natured ahadith, they gain such strength that never mind they can be used with regards to virtues, they can also be used with regards to rulings. Our claim is that the ahadith regarding the 15th of Shaʻbān are such in nature. They may be weak individually, but once combined, they now gain that strength that we can take the virtue of the 15th night of Shaʻbān from them. One additional point in this regard is, some people claim that okay, we understand the principle, but the principle relates to those ahadith that are weak and they are not extremely weak. They then claim that the ahadith regarding the 15th of Shaʻbān are extremely weak. Therefore, this principle of combining them and then taking a ruling through them cannot be applied to them. A simple response to this is that in the recent past, we have had certain scholars who are known to be very strict and very biased once it comes to such rulings. And due to them being very strict and very biased, they normally weaken all the ahadith that relate to such matters. Some of them have mentioned that some of these ahadith regarding the virtue of the 15th night of Shaʻbān, they individually are extrinsically sound. Now, once it comes to the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, considering the authenticity, then the highest level is sound, the second is reliable, and the third is weak. So if such a scholar, who I have previously described, has mentioned individual ahadith regarding the virtue of the 15th night of Shaʻbān to be sound, then one may say that he was mistaken and it should be reliable. One will not say he was mistaken and it should be weak. We won't jump down two. Jumping down one is understandable. Let me give you one example. If I mention regarding someone that they are extremely fat, they are extremely obese, then people may say that no, that person is not extremely obese, but he is obese. They may say that he's not extremely obese, but he is moderate in weight. They will never say that he's not extremely obese, but he is thin and smart. Why? For me to mention something to be extremely obese means that it at the minimum will, or he at the minimum will be moderate in weight. In a similar manner, for a scholar to make mention of such a hadith to be extrinsically sound on an individual basis means that they may be reliable, they may even be weak, but there is no chance such a hadith will be extremely weak. Therefore we say that the ahadith in this regard are weak. Some of them even individually, like I mentioned, have been graded as extrinsically sound, etc. But even if we were to take them to be weak and combine them, they will gain that much strength that we can now utilize them for the virtue of the 15th night of Shaʻbān. And the final logical point is that in the month of Ramadan, we fast for the entire month. In preparation for this, we have the month of Shaʻbān in which the Prophet ﷺ would fast excessively. Similarly, in the month of Ramadan, we have a night of power. In order to prepare for that night of power, we should in the month of Shaʻbān have such a night that prepares us for that night of power in the month of Ramadan. And this is the 15th night of Shaʻbān. A final point I will now mention in this regard is that those who follow scholars who are of the understanding that there is a special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, they can engage in additional worship. And those who follow scholars who are of the understanding that there is no special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, then they don't engage in additional worship on the 15th night of Shaʻbān. Those who want to worship should be allowed to worship. Those who don't want to worship don't have to worship. There is no need to create a fuss and make a fuss and create confusion in such times within the masses due to matters like this. And before I conclude, I just want to answer an objection many people raise. They say that, what is the special virtue to the 15th night of Shaʻbān? One of the virtues is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nuzul takes place in the 15th night of Shaʻbān. When we mention this virtue, people come back and say that, hold on, this virtue is found regarding every night in authentic ahadith. And when this virtue is shared between the 15th night of Shaʻbān and every other night, then what is so special regarding the 15th night of Shaʻbān? It is like a normal night. The answer to this is that on normal nights, as we find within authentic ahadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nuzul takes place in the last portion of the night. Whereas, once it comes to the 15th night of Shaʻbān, the ahadith make mention that Allah ta'ala's nuzul takes place in the entire night, due to which the 15th night of Shaʻbān becomes more special in comparison to normal nights. For those who may be thinking what the nuzul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to and why I've not translated it within the English language, it's not time to discuss such a matter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to pursue the correct understanding and worship Him at times and in a manner with such quantity and such quality that is most pleasing to Him. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.